They told you to wear white, lace at the collar, a ribbon at the throat, said it made the auction seem more respectable, as if decency could be stitched over shame. You stand on a wooden platform in the center of Larkspur Junction. The dust stings your eyes. The sun's going down behind the saloon roof, and the shadows fall long across the dirt. Men crowd below, some chewing tobacco, some with folded bills in hand, one with his boot still muddy from his last claim. You've never felt less like a daughter, more like a parcel. A heifer on market day. They told you this was the only way. After your father died, the ranch split in debts, and the family scattered like spooked cattle. You were too much to keep, too pretty to hire, too proud to beg, too unmarried to matter. So they sold your choices for you, called it a dowry arrangement, even drew up a list of acceptable bidders, sheriff, banker, widow rancher from 2 counties over. But that's not who showed up. No one says his name. They just point. He's here. You scan the crowd and spot him. Tanner Moore, 53, twice widowed, known to drink. He raises his eyes to yours, and you feel a chill that has nothing to do with wind. You're still tied at the wrists, not for binding, for ceremony, they said. Symbolic. But the cord is tight, and symbols cut deep. The auctioneer clears his throat. This girl's of hardy stock, knows horses, can read and write. Bid start at 30. Silence. Then a murmur. Then a voice calls out, 35. It's Moore. Another voice joins. 40. Someone you can't see. The crowd shifts. Tension breaks. The price climbs. 45, 50. You stop hearing. Your pulse drowns the noise. The lace at your collar starts to itch. Then it happens. Someone in the back raises a hand, doesn't speak, just lifts a leather pouch, unties it, lets the gold spill onto the crate in front of him. Thick, dull coins. Real. Heavy. Final. The crowd goes silent. Even the auctioneer blinks. You stare. He doesn't look at you, not once, just sets the pouch down, turns, walks away. No one counters. No one dares. The auctioneer coughs, unsure. Well, that seems settled. He points to you. Go on, girl. You're untied. You step off the platform, shoes sinking into the dust, hands shaking. You walk. Because what else is there? The man is already on his horse. Dark coat, scuffed boots, rope coiled at his saddle but untouched. He doesn't offer his hand, doesn't speak, just waits. You mount the second horse, tied behind his, and together you ride out, past the saloon, past the old chapel with its broken bell, past the cemetery where your father's name was etched wrong on the stone. You ride until the town disappears, until night settles like a bruise across the hills, until your voice cracks open in the dark. You don't ask his name, only why. He doesn't answer, only passes back a flask of water and whispers, you weren't the one being sold. You hold that sentence like a coal in your chest, warm, dangerous, alive. You trail behind him for hours, no words, just hoofbeats and breath. The sky bleeds from dusk to navy, stars blinking in like eyes. Every now and then he checks the trail ahead, never back at you, never once. You expect him to speak, to ask your name, to make a demand, to tell you where you're going or what he expects in return for the weight of gold that pulled you off that platform. But he doesn't, and somehow that makes the silence louder. At some point he stops, a wide clearing ringed by cottonwoods and bone-dry sage. There's no house, no barn, just a small camp with 2 bedrolls and a kettle already steaming. How did he— You don't ask. He dismounts and gestures toward a log beside the fire, then disappears into the trees with a rifle slung low on his shoulder. Your heart kicks again, but the camp remains still, safe, undemanding. You wait, eyes fixed on the flames, hands folded in your lap. The lace at your collar is torn now, snagged on the saddle horn. You let it stay that way. He returns with a hair and flint, doesn't speak, just starts skinning. Quick, clean work. His hands know this rhythm like prayer. You try again. Why gold? He pauses, just for a moment, then shrugs. Says, paper rots, that's all. You watch him cook, real fire, real meat, real man. Not a gentleman, not a rescuer, not what you imagined when you used to dream of someone arriving, taking you away from the ranch, from the chores, from the silence that grew wider after your mother passed. But he's not here to take, or speak, or explain. He eats half, leaves the rest for you. You wait. Surely there's a condition, a price. Some weight he'll place on your freedom later. That's how it always goes. But when the fire dies down and the stars thicken above, he lays his bedroll 6 feet from yours, back turned, hands folded, as if you're the one watching him. You don't sleep, not at first. Your heart races, your thoughts spiral. You go over it again, the gavel, the cord, the gold, and most of all, that line he said. You weren't the one being sold. What did he mean? You close your eyes and picture the men in the crowd, their hunger, their certainty. You remember how it felt to be looked at, not as a girl, not even as a woman, as a claim. And then, how he didn't look at all. It's strange, but it's that absence that feels like safety. You fall asleep just before dawn, and in the dream, you're still on the platform, but the gold never falls, only fire. When you wake, he's already saddling the horses. No breakfast, no questions, just 2 words, not far. You ride again toward something unnamed. You don't know where, but you know who is leading, and that somehow feels like a kind of map. The trail narrows, brush thickens, the trees lean in like they're eavesdropping. You ride behind him, your eyes tracing every shift in his shoulders. He knows this path, not just where it leads, but how it feels, where to slow, when to lean. When the ground softens beneath the hooves, you count hours by the sun's angle and the ache in your knees. Still, he says nothing. But every silence feels intentional, like he's giving you room to breathe, like he's letting you choose how long you'll follow. By midday you pass a dry creek bed scattered with blue wildflowers. He slows, dismounts, and walks the horses through it. You start to dismount too, but he shakes his head. You ride on, he says softly. You've earned it. The way he says it, it doesn't feel like kindness. It feels like fact, like you survived something that no one saw but him. You ride on. At one point, a red hawk cuts the sky above you. He looks up, nods to it, then mutters a word in a language you don't recognize. You want to ask what it means, but you don't, because somehow you know it wasn't meant for you. A storm threatens by late afternoon. Clouds bruise the horizon. He pushes the pace. You cross into a stretch of prairie where the wind tugs at your dress, and you feel the gold again, not in your hands, but in the question it left behind. Why did he pay, and why you? You remember the way the other men stared, their grins, their calculation. Then him, just a shadow in the back. No bid, no performance, just gold, as if he wasn't buying, as if he was breaking something. The wind cuts harder now. He turns in the saddle, gestures left. You follow. He leads you toward a rise. Beyond it, nestled in a dip between two hills, is a cabin, small, low-roofed, sturdy. The chimney smokes. There's a hitching post, a stump with an axe buried deep. Fresh wood stacked beside the door. He dismounts first, loops both reins, then turns to you, his eyes serious but calm. This is it. You hesitate. Yours? He shakes his head. No, it's for you. You blink. What? He walks to the door, opens it wide. Inside, nothing but a cot, a table, a pot-bellied stove, and a small shelf with a single blue cup. Clean, bare, safe. He points inside. Stay as long as you want. Leave when you're ready. You step past him stunned. It smells of pine and ash. A red checkered cloth rests on the table. The stove is warm. It's not a prison. It's not a promise. It's a pause. You turn to him. What do you want from me? He doesn't answer at first, just looks at the cabin, then back at you. Then finally, I want you to know what choosing feels like. Then he steps off the porch, walks back to his horse, swings up, and rides away. No name, no rules. Just a stranger with gold in his hands and silence in his bones. And now, a cabin, a night without noise. And for the first time in a long time, the sound of your own breath not caught in fear. You don't sleep at first, not because you're afraid he'll return, but because you're afraid he won't, that this might be a trick, a kindness with a hook buried deep, waiting to snap once you've let your guard down. The bed is made, wool blanket folded tight, corners neat. The kind of care you don't expect from a stranger. There's no lock on the door, no bolt on the inside, only a wooden latch, easily lifted. You slide it closed anyway, then sit on the floor, back against the wall, just to be sure. The fire's still warm in the stove. You feed it, just a little. It's the first thing you've done entirely for yourself in days, maybe weeks. You don't count time the same anymore, not since the gavel fell. At sunrise you rise slow, walk the small space. Trace your fingers along the shelf. The blue cup is chipped. There's a soft groove in the floor where someone's rocked a chair for years. You wonder who lived here before, who left it, and why. Behind the stove, folded carefully, is a worn satchel. Inside, one clean shift. A bar of lye soap. A note, not in his hand. A woman's, maybe. Faded ink, barely legible. Take what you need, leave what you don't. Heal what you can. You read it twice, then tuck it beneath your mattress like a blessing. Outside, the wind has died. The world feels open, but not in the hollow, endless way it did back at the ranch. This openness feels kind, like someone made space just wide enough for you to stand still. There's no sign of him, not that day, not the next. You don't know if he'll come back. You're not sure you want him to, but also you kind of do. Just to ask, why here? Why this place? Why you? On the third day a knock comes, soft, slow, rhythmic, 3 taps, not urgent, not uncertain. You open the door to a woman with one braid and a tin of something steaming in her hands. She doesn't ask who you are, doesn't ask where you came from, just says, "Bread's still warm. Mind if I sit?" You let her in. She moves like someone who's done this before, offered comfort to the wary. You don't trust her yet, but she doesn't ask for that either. She sets down the tin, unfolds a cloth. Inside, salt bread, still soft, still warm. She breaks it in half, gives you the bigger piece. You eat in silence. Then she speaks. Name's Marla. I live 3 ridges west. She looks around the cabin. This used to belong to my sister before she passed. You freeze. But Marla just sips from her flask and shrugs. She would have liked you. Later, when she leaves, she presses a folded scrap into your hand. A list of herbs that grow nearby. Just in case, she says. Then, he told me not to crowd you. She doesn't say his name. You don't ask. But something warm settles behind your ribs, like you've been seen and still welcomed. That night, you sleep on the bed for the first time, and dream not of being taken, but of being given. You wake with a stillness in your bones that feels borrowed. Like the cabin has pressed its calm into your skin overnight. Outside, dawn paints the world in pale fire. You boil water, toast the last of the salt bread on the stove's lip. Still no sign of him, still no answers. But there's something in the air now, belonging maybe, a kind of hush that says, this place remembers quiet women. As you clean, you spot it, a flutter of cloth near the rafters. You have to stand on the stool, reach high. It's a dress, small, child-sized, hand-sewn, blue gingham faded to gray at the shoulders. You lower it carefully, fold it across your lap, and something breaks open. Not grief, not yet. Just possibility. The seams are still strong. There's a patch at the elbow stitched in red thread, not a repair, but a flourish, like someone couldn't help adding beauty, even to worn things. You lay it on the cot, stare at it like it might answer the question burning in your chest. Who was she? The day drifts by slow. You gather firewood, sweep the corners, sit on the porch and let the sun press into your arms. You find a tin of beans on the shelf and make a stew so simple it tastes like memory. When the wind picks up, you go inside, but you leave the door open, and that's when he returns. No fanfare, just hoofbeats and the quiet thud of boots in the dirt. He doesn't knock, doesn't speak, just pauses at the threshold, one brow raised slightly, asking without words if it's all right to come in. You nod. He steps inside, removes his hat, smells like pine and dusk and a long road behind him. He glances at the dress, then at you, then sits, no questions, no apologies, just presence. Finally you ask, who was she? His jaw tightens. A long silence. Then, my niece, her mother died crossing the river, never met her, this was gonna be a gift. You nod, wait, let the silence stretch. Then, she never wore it? He shakes his head. Didn't make it in time. You don't know what to say, so you don't say anything. Just rise, take the kettle off the hook, pour him tea into the blue-chipped cup. He holds it like it's breakable, like you're breakable. Then he says something so soft you almost miss it. I didn't buy you to save you. You look up. Then why? He meets your eyes. And what you see there isn't fire. It's grief. He says, because someone once tried to sell her. The dress feels heavier on the cot now, not cloth but history, but also hope. You sip your tea, think of the ledger they made you sign back in Larkspur, of how your name was written like a debt, then burned from the page the moment the gold clinked on the table. But this cabin, this stranger, this dress, this feels like credit given to your soul, not taken. He finishes his tea, sets down the cup, stands, looks toward the dark. I'll be back next week. Then hesitates. If you want. You don't answer, not yet. Just nod. Once. He leaves the door open behind him, and somehow that, more than anything, Feels like a beginning. That night, you press the dress to your chest, breathe in the scent of wood smoke and old dreams, and whisper her name, though you never knew it. Because some girls deserve to be remembered, even if only through hands like yours. The third time she comes, she doesn't knock. She just appears. Same braid, same calm, same tin wrapped in cloth. You're chopping wood, sleeves rolled to the elbow, skirt hemmed damp from morning dew. Marla sets the bundle on your step like she's done it every week since you were born. Figured you'd be out here, she says, not looking at the axe, just the steadiness of your grip. You offer her water. She accepts with a nod. Then sits on the stump beside the split logs and says, "You're stronger than you think." Not as praise, as truth. She doesn't press, doesn't ask what happened at the auction. She only watches the sky for a while, then says, "That man, the one with the gold, he doesn't collect women, he frees them." You keep your eyes on the blade. Why? Marla shrugs. Lost someone, I think. Maybe more than one. Doesn't talk much. You nod. I noticed. She leans in, elbows on her knees. Said he found you standing real still. Said you didn't flinch, even when the bidding started. You swallow, remember the dust, the sting of the cord, the way your name didn't feel like yours. He asked if I'd check on you, she says. Then, softer, but only once. Said, if you stayed, it had to be yours, not his. That makes you pause. You thought you were waiting for him, but maybe he was leaving room for you to choose. Marla leaves the bread. She also leaves a comb, plain wood but oiled and carved with a row of tiny wildflowers along the spine. Was my sister's, she says. She used it before she cut her hair off the day her husband didn't come back. You don't ask what happened to the husband. You just run your fingers over the carving, then say, "Thank you," and mean it. That night, you eat the bread in silence, then brush your hair, slow and careful, with the comb. You catch your reflection in the window glass. You look like yourself, and not. Like a version of you that never knew the sound of a gavel, like someone becoming. You pull the child's dress from the rafters again, smooth it flat, set it on the table, and beside it, the comb. Two artifacts from women who came before, two truths that feel more like you than your own name ever did in Larkspur. You think of the ledger, the ink on your skin, the way your wrists were bound even when they said it was just symbolic. You wonder who else was sold with a smile, who else was dressed in lace and called lucky, and you start to realize this cabin is a refusal, not loud, not burning, but rooted. You sleep with the window cracked open, the shawl Marla brought last time tucked over your shoulders, the fire low. And in your dreams, you walk barefoot down a trail lined with women. Not ghosts, not victims, but builders. Like Marla, like her sister, like the girl who never wore the dress, like you. In the dream, you reach a clearing, and there he waits. But this time, he doesn't speak, he just nods. And for the first time in your life, you hear the words, "You get to decide now." On the seventh morning, the wind shifts, not just the air, but something beneath it. A hush in the trees, the kind of quiet that feels like breath held just before a name is spoken. You step outside and find the trail dustless. No fresh hoof prints, no bird song, just the rhythm of your own heart, steady now, like it's remembered its purpose. You decide to clean the hearth, not for warmth, but curiosity. You lift the iron grate, rake through the ash, sweep carefully around the stove's legs, each stroke deliberate. And then your broom snags something. You kneel, brush the ash aside. There, beneath the far left hearthstone, loose only slightly, rests a folded piece of paper. You hesitate. Then, pry the stone up. A small cavity waits. Inside, one letter wrapped in oilcloth. No name on the outside. You unwrap it, hold the parchment. The handwriting is slanted. Careful. Female. You begin to read. To the next woman who comes here, this place was built for breath. I never got to raise my daughter here. She came too early. My hands were too cold. But I left things behind, things I hoped someone might one day touch and feel less alone. If you are reading this, then maybe you too have come from a silence that pressed in on all sides. Let this cabin be your answer. Hannah M. You stare at the signature, then whisper it, not because you know her, but because now she knows you. You set the letter on the table beside the dress, the comb, the herbs drying near the sill, and something shifts in you, like a piece of your spine just found its final notch. You are not a girl who was sold, not a bride who was chosen. You are a woman becoming. In a house stitched with memory, laced with echoes of survival, and sealed in silence not of fear, but of respect. The next day you ride out, alone, just to see. You don't go far, just the ridge above the cottonwoods. From there, you see smoke curling from another chimney, distant but strong. Maybe Marla's, maybe another cabin with a story tucked under its floor. You return before dusk, the cabin still there, still holding, still yours. That evening, you boil water and scrub the floorboards. Then, as the fire softens the edges of the room, you light a single candle, fold Hannah's letter again, slide it back beneath the hearthstone, but you add a second sheet, your own. Not a full story, just beginnings, a name you've chosen, a date, and this. This place made me remember what it means to wake up and not be afraid. You press the stone down gently, like laying a marker over something sacred. Outside the sky burns gold, inside the dress still waits. And for the first time, you begin to think what it might look like on a child not yet born. One who will grow up knowing freedom smells like wood smoke and salt bread, and that a name can be earned, not assigned. Late in the afternoon you hear it, the soft snort of a horse, a slow creak of leather. You rise from the stool, heart calm but curious. Out the window you see him, leaning against the split-rail fence, reins in hand. Same hat, same silence. Same man who traded gold without ever asking your name. He doesn't call out, doesn't wave, just waits, like he knows you'll come when you're ready. And you do, slowly. No apron, no braid, no need to rehearse who you're supposed to be. You step out, arms crossed, sun behind you. You reach the fence. He nods. You stayed. You lift a brow. You left. A flicker of a smile, gone before it settles. Figured if you didn't burn the place down, that meant something. You glance at his horse, pack heavier this time, worn bedroll, canteen, a carved pipe tucked into the saddle pouch. You ask, "Leaving again?" He shrugs. "Just came to see if you were alive." "Why?" A pause. Then, because most women who get bought don't live long afterward, not the way they want to. You feel that land in your gut, heavy, true. You nod toward the cabin. "Didn't just live, I built." He glances toward the porch, where the dress still hangs near the doorframe, catching evening breeze. He nods once. Looks like it. Then he steps forward, reaches into his coat, pulls out something wrapped in leather. unfolds it. A map. Old, creased, but marked. Lines drawn by hand. No towns, just paths. Springs. Empty stretches where only those who listen can survive. This was hers, he says. The girl the dress was for. You swallow. Take it carefully. It smells of beeswax and wild mint. You ask, why give it to me? He meets your eyes. No one else has walked the same line since she died. You let the silence grow. Then say, I haven't walked it. I built it. His face doesn't change, but his voice does. Just a little softer, a little lower. You want to ride it? You blink. What? The trail, her trail, the one she marked. He points at the map. She drew it for women who didn't have a place, places to stop, places to rest. Cabins like this, widow trails, some folks call them. The word lingers in the air like dust. You glance back at the house, then to the hills beyond, then say, if I go, does someone else come here? He nods. I've got a list. You think for a long while, then fold the map, tuck it against your chest. I'll need a better knife. He grins, quiet, respectful. I brought two. That night, you pack lightly, leave the letter where it belongs. The dress stays, the comb too. But you wear the shawl and carry the ledger. Blank now, except for one line on the last page she left by her own firelight. And as you ride out just before dawn, you whisper something into the wind, not goodbye, just forward. The trail is quieter than you expect, not in sound, but in weight. Like each mile holds breath, waiting to see if you'll pass the same way she once did. You ride at sunrise, the shawl wrapped tight around your shoulders, map tucked inside your blouse, its edges soft from folding. The man, he doesn't lead. He rides alongside, at your pace, always one glance behind your left shoulder as if checking if you're still choosing to be here. Midday brings a clearing, a stump carved with 3 notches. He stops. You dismount. This is one of the marks, he says. You crouch, trace your fingers along the notches. They're not random. They form a triangle, point down. You know what it means? You ask. He nods. It meant there's food buried near. You both dig, find a small tin, rusted but intact. Inside, dry beans, a sliver of soap, a folded note. 2 days ahead, there's a spring under the cottonwoods. Wait there if the sky turns red. You look up. Blue now, but clouds coming. At the spring, 2 days later, it does turn red. Sunset flares like blood across the horizon. You make camp under a bluff. He builds the fire. You brew the tea. Then he asks, "What was your name before the auction?" You don't answer. Instead you ask, "What do you call me?" He studies you. Then says, "She who stays." The name clings to you, not in a way that smothers, in a way that grounds. You scratch it into the back of the map with a charcoal stub. One more mark. One more truth. You pass more markers. A cluster of white stones shaped like a circle. A blue ribbon tied to a pine branch, faded to gray. At each one you leave something small. A button, a line from Hannah's letter. A sliver of salt bread wrapped in waxed cloth. Tiny testaments. He watches, but never judges. On the 6th day he hands you the reins. This trail forks soon. You nod. You already knew. You reach the fork near dusk. One path leads east, back toward settlements, law, and noise. The other? Southwest, uncharted. But there's a sign nailed to a tree, scorched into the wood. Only the fireproof walk here. You tie your shawl tighter. Look at him. I want to walk where the fire didn't burn everything down. He nods once, and for the first time, he follows you. The next cabin is nearly gone. Just 2 walls left standing, a roof half collapsed, chimney stones scattered like forgotten bones. Still, it holds the shape of shelter, and in the ashes, cold, long dead, you find a cradle, blackened at the edges, but intact. You kneel beside it, fingertips grazing the carved rail. One name etched into the base, still legible through soot. Ami. 3 letters. Sharp. Careful. Meant to last. You whisper it aloud. The air doesn't flinch. He watches from a few paces back, hat low, eyes unreadable, then softly, "That was her." You glance up. He nods toward the cradle. "My sister carved it while she was still carrying." You sit back on your heels. "She make it here?" His voice is dust. "No." He moves forward, kneels beside you. "Snow came early that year. They ran short of food. She gave birth 2 days from this place." You wait. Then he adds, "Alone." The silence settles like snowfall. You feel it in your chest, your throat, your fingertips. You reach out, place your palm flat on the cradle's edge. "She didn't die alone, though," you say. "She's here." He blinks, then nods once, as if you've translated something he couldn't speak. You lift the cradle. It's heavier than it looks. Ash clings to the corners. You carry it inside the remains of the cabin. There's no roof, but the stars look kind tonight. You place the cradle beneath the beams and begin to sweep. With your scarf, with your hands, with care. He doesn't help, doesn't need to. His stillness is its own kind of honoring. After, you sit in what was once a doorway, pass a tin of broth between you. He says, "They marked this spot with the name Hollow Mercy." You frown. "Why hollow?" He shrugs. "Because there was no one left to hear her cry." You shake your head. "No, hollow means something else to me, now." You lean back, gaze at the stars, then whisper, "It means space that can still be filled." Later, in the dark, he pulls a worn satchel from his horse, hands it to you. Inside, a small scrap of muslin, embroidered in red thread, same as the patch on the child's dress. Ami, daughter, dream. You press it to your chest, and something inside you clicks into place. Not as mother, not as wife, as witness. That night, as wind hums through the broken rafters, you whisper a promise. You don't know yet to whom. But it tastes like blood and salt and firelight. You will carry this cradle, not for the child, not even for the sister, but for all the women whose names were almost spoken. By the time you reach the canyon rim, the air smells of sage and ash. Not burning, but remembering. You build the fire with practiced hands. He watches without interfering. This time he doesn't offer wood, doesn't ask what you're planning, just hands you flint, then steps back. You crouch low, striking spark after spark until the bundle catches, a curl of smoke, a thread of heat, and then flame, not large, not roaring, just enough to mark a place in the dark. You sit beside it, pull the cradle closer, lay the muslin scrap across its edge like a flag no one dares question. He lowers himself opposite you, says, "You've been quiet." You nod, still are. Then, "You ever burned something to keep it from being stolen?" He nods, but says nothing more. You pull out the map, unfold it slow. The charcoal marks you added, places where stone spoke or letters weighted, now form a constellation, a trail of moments no man ever claimed. You add a new mark beside the canyon, shape it like a star, not because it's bright, but because it lasts. He shifts, drawing something from his coat, a small pouch. He opens it. Inside, gold dust, barely a pinch. He pours it into your palm. Was hers, my sister, saved it for the baby. You watch it shimmer in the firelight, then reach forward, let it fall into the flames. He doesn't stop you, just says, "She never got to name her." You nod. "I'll carry her anyway." You pull out your ledger, the one they made you sign in Larkspur. You'd torn out the page with your sold name. Now, you tear out a blank one. With charcoal you write, "Cradle carried, name remembered, fire lit." Then you fold it, slide it under the cradle, let the flames seal the moment. He clears his throat, rough, unused. "She would have liked you." You smile barely. "She doesn't have to." Then add, "She already made me possible." Later, as embers glow low, you lay your shawl over the cradle, not as covering, as honor, and with the canyon wind threading through your hair, you say aloud, "I wasn't born to be chosen." Pause. Breathe. "I was born to choose." The wind carries it somewhere beyond, maybe to her, maybe to you, to the woman you're still becoming, and for the first time, you believe she'll hear it. At dawn, you wake before the fire dies. The cradle rests beside you, smoke-laced and soft with ash. He's already saddling his horse, movements quiet, practiced. No questions in his eyes, just patience. You rise, fold the shawl, brush dirt from your dress. Then lift the cradle again, lighter now. Not because it weighs less, but because you do. Today the path narrows, no more markers, no more notes tucked beneath stones, just sky brush and the sound of your breath in rhythm with the mare's hooves. At midday he stops, points to a small bluff ahead. "Used to be a chapel there." You squint. See only ruin, he says. "Roof collapsed, but the floor still holds." You approach on foot. Inside the walls are little more than leaning beams, but sunlight filters through in strips, and beneath the dust, faint shapes remain on the floor, rings carved in old wood, circles, interlocking, worn thin by time, marriage circles. He walks in behind you, lowers himself onto one of the beams, waits, no sermons, no questions, just presence. You stand in the center ring, cradle at your side, let the silence fill your lungs, and then you speak. "I wasn't meant to be owned." Your voice is steady, not loud, just true. "I wasn't born to become someone's ledger line or livestock with lace." He doesn't answer, doesn't need to. The sun does, filling the room like breath. You set the cradle down. Inside it you place the muslin scrap, the last of Marla's bread crumbled soft, a dried flower stolen from a bluff 2 days back. Then fold a new paper, just 4 words. For the next woman, you don't bury it, you leave it, on purpose, in a place where nothing was taken, only offered. Outside he waits at the trail's edge. When you join him, he nods toward the horizon. "You ready?" You look back one last time, then say, "I am now." You ride in silence for a long time, until the hills widen, the trail bends, and ahead in the distance you see something strange. A cabin, newer than the others, smoke curling from the chimney, clothes on a line, someone home. You slow. He does too. And then he speaks. "She's alone. Widow with a child, been asking for supplies." You glance at the saddlebag, nod, then ask, Why bring me here? He shrugs, then says, because you're the one who knows how to stay. The child opens the door, watches you with wide, steady eyes. Behind her, a woman appears, eyes lined with salt. Hope buried under caution. You step down, offer your hand, and say only, my name is mine now. The widow's name is Ruth. The girl's is May. You don't ask what happened to the man. You don't need to. His absence speaks louder than most graves. Ruth shows you the pantry first, empty but clean. Then the well, shallow but sweet. She says she has seeds but no plow. She says she has cloth but no thread. You listen. And then you offer something rare. Not pity, not answers, just presence. You stay the night. In the loft beside May's pallet, the girl breathes in soft whistles, the kind that echo through dreams. And you hold the cradle at your side like it's still warm, not for a child, but for possibility. In the morning, Ruth is already tending the fire. You hand her the muslin scrap. She runs her fingers along the stitches, smiles, doesn't ask, just says, thank you. You nod and begin sweeping her doorstep. Later, you find the rusted horseshoe buried near the fence. You hang it over the window, opening up the sky. Then build a hook from a broken rake so the cradle hangs. Not as memorial, as invitation. The man doesn't stay long. You find him tightening his saddle straps before dusk. You don't ask where he's going, but he tells you anyway. There's another marker near the Cimarron. Heard someone's waiting there. Could use a guide. You nod, then offer him a jar of honey Ruth had buried for hard winters. He accepts, tips his hat, and says, you ever change your mind? You cut him off. I know the way. He leaves without another word, but you watch until the dust settles, then return to the porch and keep watching the horizon, just in case. That night, May asks you why the cradle is empty. You tell her, because the next baby isn't ready yet. She nods like that makes perfect sense, then climbs inside it anyway, to read, to dream, to imagine who else might belong there. Later, you find yourself at the table, ledger open, map unfurled. You start marking again, but now, not just trails, havens, places where a fire was lit, a meal shared, a name returned. You add a new line, this home does not demand. Then below it, this name is not borrowed. Then finally, this woman does not break. You fold the paper, slip it beneath the cradle's base. Another offering, another layer of memory. You smile, knowing one day someone will find it, and understand without needing to ask. You begin to write. Not letters, not stories, names. The ones you remember, the ones you overheard, the ones whispered over firelight or scratched into the backs of old tin cups. Names with no graves, no witnesses, no proper goodbyes. You fill the margin of the ledger page like a prayer, each line steady, no embellishment, just truth. Ruth brings you more pages, old receipts, blank envelopes, flour sacks. You use them all, ink smudging your fingers, charcoal dust in your sleeves. Every name feels like a seed pressed into soil that finally knows rain. May helps. She adds drawings, stick figures with long braids, hands reaching out, eyes like suns. She draws the cradle again and again, sometimes floating, sometimes resting beneath trees, once burning bright with gold sparks flying out. You tape it above the hearth, right beside the map, which is now crowded, lines thick with crossings, loops, returns. You've begun circling places. Places where women stayed, places where children were named, where shawls were passed like torches, where widows held the line when no one else could. You start receiving letters, carried by riders, slipped under stones. One reads, "You don't know me, but my sister found your map." Another, "We followed the ashes and found the spring. I buried the comb there." Another, "Is it true? Did the woman in the dress survive the fire?" You respond to none of them, not directly. You just keep marking, adding, building. Ruth calls it a ministry. You don't. You just say, "It's what I needed to find." She nods and sets more kindling by the door. May starts asking the names aloud. You let her, one each night before sleep. A ritual now, like lighting a lantern against forgetting. One evening you wake to find the cradle empty again, but on the porch it's rocking, not by wind, by hand. A woman stands there, hair streaked gray, boots muddy, eyes full of questions and answers alike. She looks at you, then down at the cradle, then simply says, "It's time." You don't speak, you just stand and nod. Step aside. She enters like she has always belonged, because in some way she has. That night the ledger gains one more name. You don't write it, she does, and when she's done, she adds a line beneath, "I was not too late." The cradle rests at her feet, not as burden, not as gift, as inheritance. You rise before the others, sky still blue-black, wind barely stirring. The cabin breathes around you, quiet, solid. You step out barefoot, shawl wrapped close. The cradle sits on the porch, still and waiting. You kneel beside it one last time. Inside the muslin scrap, a pebble from hollow mercy, a ribbon braided by May, and a folded page with no ink, just the shape of the names that filled you. You place it gently beneath the curved slats. Close your eyes and listen. Behind you, Ruth lights the morning fire. May giggles in her sleep, and the woman with the gray-streaked hair hums something ancient. Not English, not Lakota, just belonging. You walk out to the edge of the bluff, map in hand, then tear it in half. Keep the piece with the trail behind you. Let the wind take the rest. Let someone else mark the path forward. In the distance, a rider moves, slow, steady. You don't wave, you don't hide, you wait. As he passes, he looks once, touches the brim of his hat, then vanishes into the curve of the hills. No words exchanged, just recognition that you made it, that you stayed, that you chose. Back inside, you find May awake. She asks, "Is the cradle gone?" You smile. "No, it's where it needs to be." She nods like that means something. And it does, to both of you. You tear a new page from the ledger, write only 7 words. "This fire stays lit for someone else." Then tuck it into the hearth, behind the stones, where the next hands will find it. The day warms, bread rises, a hawk circles high above, and in the hush of that golden morning you feel something final loosen, a weight you forgot to name. You don't cry, you exhale, and in that breath is every woman who ever turned away from the edge and built a world instead. You close your eyes, let the sun reach your face, let the warmth speak without voice. Then whisper, almost too soft to catch, "Sweet dreams."